Good. I think that's most people are here now. I'd often say at least the most important ones are here. And then somebody comes in, the last one. All the nuns here? Yeah, okay, I'm right, the most important ones are here. So this is the last mini talk at the end of the retreat, and because I have to leave sharply at 9:15 to go to another appointment, so what we're planning to do is to give a little talk, finish about 8:45 or 9:10, and then have toilet break, because after the toilet break we're going to do a loving kindness meditation. And to do a loving kindness meditation, if you are holding in your bladder or something else, that's not really loving kindness at all. So out of compassion for the fact you just had breakfast and cups of tea or whatever, we have that toilet break and then back by about 9 o'clock, 9:05, and to do the final loving kindness meditation. But because I've got some other monks picking me up at 9:45, when I'll try and finish about 9:40, 9:35. So if there's anything you need to say, we can say it then. Because sometimes my problem is, I make these appointments, but it's actually quite a long way from here to the car park. For me anyway, because you get hijacked on the way. I don't really mind, but it's for other people. I should try and be there on time. But I have all these wonderful experiences being a monk, and at one time, it was at the in Hong Kong, where the jockey club there is, it's obviously it's for the horse racing industry there, but they do a lot of charity work there. And I remember going to one of the big halls for this nice long talk one evening. And after the talk was finished, obviously then there's the questions and answers. And after the questions and answers were all finished, I've been sitting up there for a couple of hours, probably a bit longer. And of course, even monks have to go to the toilet. And I was just really wanting to go, quite desperately. And then as you were walking out of the hall, there's so many people stopped me. I've got a question on my meditation. Just what you said in the talk, I could come earlier, too many people around you. Now, what is the meaning of dependent origination? Or they wanted a photograph or a book signed. And it really took about an hour to make about 50 meters of progress to get outside the hall to where the male toilet was. And so I thought, at last I made it, almost bursting. And this is no exaggeration. As soon as I went into that toilet, you go in there for the places where you can wash your hands and stuff first of all before you go to the toilet. And I went in there and I thought, I made it at last. And there's another gentleman who just finished washing his hands and turned around to me, Ajahn Brahm, I really need to talk to you about my meditation. I thought, oh God, there's no escape. But of course, I saw the funny side of that story and just told everyone about it, which is wonderful. Yeah, you can always hold it a few more minutes. But what that really means is that through this meditation, I taught this last few days, and it's not just understanding what meditation is and getting past a few of those misunderstandings about meditation. It's also just learning about just how the Buddha taught. And even though some of the concepts which I've introduced, things like nimittas and jhanas, you may have noticed I introduced jhanas, but I never said too much about them. There's a reason for that, and it's because I found out, yes, you've got to make these things available for people. And to say they're possible, because people do get them. Not everyone will, but everyone can. And because of that, and because many people are Buddhists these days, there's a sense, of the pride of like Westerners or modern people. Yeah, if we could do it, I want to do it. And of course, I was very much like that when I was young. The very first time I went to a Wesak ceremony, it was over in Cambridge. I was a layperson. And I heard the monk talk about the story of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. And as that monk sort of told it, I was really incredibly inspired. And one thing which he said, that the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and made a resolution, a determination. And the Buddha's determination was that I will not move from under this tree until either I become fully enlightened, or the alternative, until all my blood dries up and my bones turn to dust. That's his resolution. And I thought, wow, that's so impressive. There's no enlightenment or bust. I was 18 at the time. And I think I could maybe do 25 minutes of meditation, half an hour at a push. You know what's coming next. For you haven't remembered this story from, I've written about it, talked about it before. So I went to my room after the ceremony's all finished and said, this is it. The Buddha can do it. Why can't I? So I sat on my cushion and made it nice and soft. Before I closed my eyes, I said, I am not going to move from my cushion. And we're all stupid at times, and sometimes more often than others. So I'm not going to move from this seat until I get full enlightenment, not part enlightenment, full thing. Because I said to myself, I'm young, but I've got so many things I have to do in life. So I want to get enlightened, get that out of the way. I think you can relate to me, can't you? And then I can do all these other things in life. So I made a determination not going to move. And you know what happens when you make determinations like that? Just 20 minutes went past. You still had a wandering mind. 25 minutes, reaching my limit. Half an hour. Wow, that's a lot. But there's no sign of any limiters or jhanas or enlightenment, nothing. But yeah, give it a chance. 35 minutes. This was really hurting. 40 minutes. I couldn't stand it any longer. It was hurting terribly. So I opened my eyes and looked at my body. No, the blood was still there. The bones hadn't turned to dust yet. That was really disappointing. And certainly I wasn't enlightened. So I always remember that experience, getting up afterwards, feeling how stupid I was. Because it's not that easy a thing to do. But nevertheless, you teach it. Because little by little, day by day, year by year, you get closer. And that's why all these really compassionate teachers like an Ajahn teaching you. Sometimes I wonder, what did he teach me for? If he was teaching me, he couldn't have been wise. If I'm teaching you, what does that say about me? But it's not just compassion, it's wisdom as well. Because you teach, and people just learn a little bit more, and a little bit more. And of course you make it fun to come to a retreat centre. I hope it has been fun while you've been here. So you want to come back again. And you want to join in again. And also, in between that humour and the funny stories, there's also been a lot of Dharma being put in there. And sometimes the best description was of a Tibetan monk many years ago, almost about 40 years ago now, because a layperson told me this. He was listening to this talk by a Tibetan in a library, I think, in Melbourne. And Tibetan monk would tell quite a few jokes. And then, why do you tell jokes when you're supposed to be teaching Dhamma? And he said it very articulately. He said, because when my students have their mouth open for laughing, that's when I can throw in the pill of Dhamma. And there's a lot of truth there. Because when you're laughing, you're actually paying attention, your mind has woken up. You're engaging in the moment. Sometimes when you're thinking, a counter argument in your head, you're not listening to what's happening outside at all. You're not silent, you're not really aware. Real laughter, at least it brings you into this moment. And you're here, and you're open, you're ready to listen. So some of those things you put in there, which is almost, you don't realize just how powerful those moments are. And those little teachings, they're in there, as I said, like seeds planted in your mind somewhere. Not just your brain, in your mind, which the stream of consciousness goes past your death. It's planted in there so that when the storm comes, the storms of life, where you're really having a difficult time, it's amazing just how those seeds, they germinate, they grow and blossom really quickly. And you get these wonderful responses, which just other people don't have. You're peaceful, you're calm, resilient, and you trust not what you've been taught, but what you see. And much of that is incredible. It's very, very powerful. And sometimes it stuns people. Where do you get that from? So, honestly, just all the things which I teach you, if anything you think is wise, it's not come from me at all. It's come from my teachers and my teachers' teachers, all down that line. They planted those seeds, they grow, and they're interpreted or explained in Ajahn Brahm way. But I don't own it. It comes from others. So little by little, you're teaching some very profound and wise things to give it to you, to spread around the world. Ajahn Brahm, isn't that a bit sort of big to spread around the world, especially COVID time? But no, because sometimes you figured out, if I make any one of you just a little bit more peaceful, a bit more kind, a bit more wise, how many people do you meet in a day, in a week, in a year? And you affect all of those. And they affect others. And they affect others. Just by simple things, just by who you are. By, somebody gets really upset and you can calm them down, or people try and upset you and you just don't get upset. You have an amazing effect on this world, not by writing books or giving talks like I do, but just by who you are. I've often noticed that if somebody comes into a room, they're very angry and tight and upset, they upset the whole room. You can feel there's bad energy coming in this room. You call it bad energy, that's just a way of describing it. Or like I said, there are people with spikes on them. You just want to get out of the room or hide. There's other people who come into the room and they just make you feel so peaceful, so happy, so joyful. And a good example of that, so many years ago that we were having some problems with lots and lots and lots of trucks coming past Jhana Monastery. So we fought it. We thought we had a duty of care to all the people who came to visit us. Because I saw one of those trucks, they called it a B-double, a big truck with a big trailer, just lose control going down Kingsby Drive, and it turned over on its side. It was really, really dangerous. But anyway, just during that time, the local Minister for Transport was the lady Alana McTiernan. So I made an appointment to see her and just asked if she could help. She was very kind and amenable to us, and especially afterwards, because we were the last client of the day for her. She had her offices in Kelmscott at that time. And then after going to office and having a chat, and when she just led us to the door to say goodbye, she let slip something. She said, it's so wonderful having Buddhist monks in my office. Everyone else has just got such high energy, so negative or so demanding. And you monks are just so peaceful. And she said that with integrity. Please come again. For anything. Because she could pick up on the calm energy, of peaceful people. And so that's how you can spread sort of peace, not by what you say, but by who you are. So that's one of the reasons why, as monks or nuns, to spread the Dhamma in this world, you're just sitting there being so peaceful of this last few days, being calm and being an inspiration to people. Some of the talks which you have given by being silent are incredibly powerful. But sometimes you have to be careful by being silent, because it's usually you let the senior monastic give the talk. And that's what happened to me when I first came to Perth from Thailand. Ajahn was senior to me, so he gave the talks. And I just sat next to him just to see if there's anything he needed. So most times I was really silent. And I was so silent that when Ajahn went to Thailand just for a couple of weeks, just to check in, I had to give the talk. When I started talking, I remember this about 9-year-old girl came up to me, still remember her name, Kelly, still keeps in touch. And Kelly came up to me, "That's amazing. I've been coming with my mum to the temple for the last 3 months, and you've always been silent. I thought you were brain damaged." 9-year-old kids. You can talk. Oh. So I guarantee the 4 nuns are not brain damaged. Unless we got them to talk and introduce themselves. But also to feel that sort of goodwill towards you. So you learn a lot here. Some of it you don't understand. That's fine. One of the crazy experiences which I had going to different retreats and different spiritual traditions when I was looking for, the tradition which I like to commit to. And I would speak to the other lay people who just heard a talk. And I noticed something really strange. It was really funny, but very sad too. Because after the talk, we'd assess the talk. What was the talk like? And so that was just an ordinary talk. But sometimes after a talk, they come and say, "That was really profound. That was really deep." I said, "What do they say?" "I don't know. I don't understand it, so it must have been deep." And that's really common. If you don't understand what it was saying, "Oh, that was really profound, that was really deep, oh, you should have seen it." And if you understand it, it's just ordinary. That's not the case. Because some of the stuff I've said here is actually very, very profound. But because you could understand it, of course it was explained in a way you get some feeling for it. Never, ever assume it's not deep. And just like that wonderful story which I mentioned about what enlightenment is, the 5 children playing the wishing game, that is so incredibly powerful. But it's also very easy to understand. But you think you've understood it and take it deeper. Just let it grow on you. The most wonderful thing in the world is to have the wish that you don't need any more wishes ever again. Peace at last, freedom. So little by little, all the way that happens, about how people do get enlightened, how they get deep meditation, the old donkey chasing the carrot. Beautiful story. Know that somebody they made a a comment about that. I've heard that comment before, and it's quite valid. What happens if the donkey is still anyway? Or it's not moving very fast. And then it stops, and the carrot just moves an inch forward, an inch back. It never comes into the donkey's mouth. Should we run first of all? Run really fast to get some momentum up and then stop? Sounds okay in theory, but the point is each one of you, as you know, be honest, you've been running around for such a long time. That's your nature now. But do we know how to stop? That word stopping is such a beautiful word. It's like let go, put things down, relax. It's like not going your normal course, but just stopping, relaxing, resting, and then see what happens. And you've seen many other people say, oh, no, all these things will come to you. How on earth does that happen? And of course, you experience it. That's one of the most wonderful things about the experiences in meditation or wisdom. It's just weird, but when you give up, when the retreat is ended, which it is going to be very soon, that's when things happen. And all these wonderful stories, I told a few of them, but I really should have gone to more length explaining the Ananda method of enlightenment. Because many of you can do that so easily. The Ananda method of enlightenment was that he was the attendant of the Buddha for so many years. And when the Buddha passed away, Ananda was still not enlightened. If you haven't become enlightened when you're attendant, looking after, sitting next to the Buddha for years, if you can't become enlightened like that, when are you ever going to become enlightened? There's some people on this retreat, they've been coming to retreats for years. I think maybe, Ananda, how many years have you come on this retreat?
14 years.
10 years, and they're still coming back again. But you're a little bit smarter because you've heard that story of the Buddha's attendant. And the Buddha's attendant, not 10 years, about 25 years, I think, he was the attendant of the Buddha. And he was just a little bit upset afterwards when the Buddha passed away, still not enlightened, even though the Buddha said, you'll become enlightened. Do you believe what other people say? Maybe they're just trying to make you feel good. So what Ajahn Brahm is doing, just making you feel good, that you can do it. That's much more than that. So after the Buddha passed away, a few of the disciples, they realized that the Buddha said, let the Dhamma and the Vinaya, the teachings, be your guide from here on in. But what are those teachings? And people can make up teachings so easily. So because of that, they all had this little conference, this meeting. 500 having a meeting to bring all what they've heard about the teachings together, recite it all, record it all, and just basically authorize what the Dhamma of the Buddha really was. And so they selected 499 fully enlightened beings. And the 500th was Ananda, not this Ananda, the other Ananda. the attendant of the Buddha, because he'd heard so much, more than probably any other monk. But poor old Ananda, he had a meeting the following day with 499 fully enlightened beings, and he was the only one who wasn't. How do you think he felt? How would you feel? I say this at this time of the story when I tell it. How would you feel if I made the announcement that everyone on this retreat was enlightened except for you? How would you feel? It's unfair. And so Ananda decided, okay, let's give it one last big shot. So that night, the night before the big meeting, he vowed, this is it, I'm going to become enlightened. I'm going to really go for it. Nothing else, just meditating all night. Meditate. And of course, you know what happened. You can predict it. Nothing. Except more and more frustration and disappointment. Oh, I tried everything. When the Buddha was alive, I couldn't do it. Now I give it everything I've got and I can't do it. Oh, what's the point? But at least he was a practical man. And so he looked at the time. It was another hour or so before the meeting started. So he decided to take a nap. Just in the morning. Not at night time. He'd been meditating all night. He decided to take a nap. So he went back to his room and he laid down. And before his head hit the pillow, he became the 500th enlightened being. It came to him like that. And I often remember that story, teach that story, reflect on that story. When he gave up trying, he let go. He stopped all this effort, I'm going to do it. When the donkey stopped, then the carrot came right into Ananda's mouth. And there's a wonderful story, but I always like the last part of that story, because he hadn't been enlightened, and how do you actually prove to the others you're enlightened? What do you do? Say, hey, I'm enlightened. Well, of course, that's not going to convince anybody. In fact, it's a sign you're not. So what Ananda did, because he was, been spending so much time and blissing out on his enlightenment, decided to, he came late into the meeting. They were waiting for him, and he wasn't turning up, so they locked the door. And so according to the texts, he came in through the keyhole. It's like, whoosh, and then bang, and here I am, Ananda. Pretty much like that. And so I was waiting for that when you get enlightened, we lock the doors. Come in through the keyhole. That's really, really cool. It's impressive. So anyway, so those things sometimes happen. And come on. This is some of the other. I meant to tell this story. I think I should tell this story because it's a powerful story about what happens when people get really strong meditation. This was because people ask, can lay people get enlightened? Can they get deep meditation? Of course they can. And this was the story of this Indonesian monk. He wasn't a monk yet. And I met him a few times. He's really impressive. But he told me his story personally. So he said he was a young man in Java many years ago. And he decided he wanted to be a hermit, like a rishi. So he went into the jungle, and there was lots of jungle in Java then. Went into the jungle, a nice little quiet place to meditate. And when he sat down to meditate, he's obviously had lots of skill in meditation and letting go, got very peaceful, very still. And he said he saw this star coming to him. And he said it was like a deva princess, a heavenly being. That's just the words he uses. Really, he said he married it. Now, all those thinking, this is sensuality. No, it's just his words in Indonesian trying to speak English. You're married, united with this beautiful light. That's like typical Nimitta and Jhana experience. And then he said, when he came out of that deep meditation, didn't know for how long, he looked at the trees in the jungle where he was sitting, and it was totally different. There'd been destruction. And when he got up and he walked to the nearest village, they told him there'd been a flood there, a huge flash flood, and he'd been under a couple of meters of water for days. The meditation lasted a very long time, not an hour, half an hour, but days. And he was a really powerful monk afterwards. And one of my friends who did a lot of meditation, but be careful, this is one of the reasons why you should not show off psychic powers if ever you have them. One of my friends, she was actually a princess, like a Mom Luang. No Ratchawang. Yeah, Luang, granddaughter of one of the kings. And so she was really interested in meditation eventually. And so she used to go to this class in this monastery in Bangkok, in Wat Buon, once a week. He was teaching it. And they were sitting meditation, just like you sit meditation here. And she realized something's going on, something's not right. So she opened her eyes. And she swore to me, just like, not bad speech, but vowing that she actually saw this with her own eyes. This monk had like laser light coming out of his two eyes into one of the other meditators. The monk with laser eyes. And what did she do? She got up, left, and never went back again. If I gave you the laser eyes, what would you do? Because we're scared of power. It's natural. That's one of the reasons why. Just keep it quiet. But anyway, he's a wonderful monk. And so he eventually passed away. That's why I can tell the story about him. Because you don't like to give monks too much attention. So it can be done. He was a layperson when he did that. He became a monk afterwards. So all these things can happen. So that gives you some encouragement. So if you want laser eyes, hands up if you want some laser eyes. So you can do that. And as a scientist, a theoretical physicist, that really challenged me. That can't be possible. But these things are. And that makes life really interesting. Past lives, laser eyes, levitation, all that sort of stuff happens. Ooh, weird. But if any of you ever do learn how to meditate and get deep meditation and learn how to levitate, please get a motorcycle crash helmet. Because that must be your last story. Actually, you should shut up. The last story, which was a wonderful anecdote, there was a monk years and years and years and years ago, just staying in the forest by himself, simple monk, but could actually levitate. And would just go for a little bit of exercise in the morning in the forest, a little tour around levitating. And of course, what happens if you do stuff like that? People see you. And when they saw him, they go around the village and the word gets around, this is a special monk, he can levitate. And of course, from the village, and they go to the town to buy supplies, and so they tell the townspeople, they come and check it out, it's true, and the town says to the city, and the city eventually, the word gets to the capital, when it gets to the capital, it gets to the king. The king said, I always wanted to see a monk who can levitate. Wouldn't you want to see a monk who could levitate? Bad luck. So the king sent one of his ministers, please invite the monk to the palace, I'll look after him. And of course, a good monk, you wouldn't go to the palace, and I'm happy in my forest. Thank you very much, but I'm staying here. So the word got back to the king, the monk wasn't moving from his lovely forest. So then the king sent the army to the forest to give that monk an offer he could not refuse. As they used to say. I remember seeing that first episode of Godfather, wasn't it? The big movie. That was before I became a monk. Anyway, so the monk went to the palace. The king was very good. He made a nice little forest in the palace grounds and a little hut, just like the past King Rama the Ninth of Thailand did, because I went to visit that hut once next to Chitlana Palace. Beautiful. It was just like being in the forest. It was in the middle of Bangkok, next to the king's palace. But anyway, this monk was staying there. He didn't mind. It was okay. He's a very content monk. But the problem was he'd always, again, keep his routine of going flying every morning. And then come back and then have his lunch. But that day, that morning, instead of the king bringing the dana to the monk, he was sort of busy. So he sent one of his daughters, this incredibly drop-dead gorgeous, hot princess. Which in movies, that's what princesses are, but this was a true story, apparently. So this princess was just, innocently being in the Dharna, and the monk was just coming into land and just saw that princess, just one moment of lust, one moment of a defilement, and he had to do a crash landing. He lost his ability to fly. That's how sensitive it is. And so after his lunch, he went back to the forest, walking all the way. He lost that ability because if you have defilements, it seems like you can't do those things anymore. And then it took him another couple of years, 2 or 3 years, to get that ability back again. That's how sensitive these things are. It's almost like a safety switch to make sure you cannot abuse those psychic powers. If you do, you lose them. But anyway, one last story. It's a joke to finish off with, because it reminded me of the idea of a princess. So there was the Princess Snow White, there was Superman, and there was Pinocchio. You know those 3 characters? Yeah, okay. They had an afternoon off from the Disney sort of headquarters. And so they're walking down the street in LA somewhere, and they saw this big sign, a competition, a beauty contest. I know this might be, I might get into trouble because I don't know what's politically correct these days. But it went into the beauty contest, and sort of the Princess Snow White said, "Oh, I can do well in that." So Princess Snow White went into the beauty contest. 5 minutes later, she came out with a prize and a lot of money. "Yay, I won," said Snow White. And so they went further down. There was a weightlifting contest, and Superman said, "I'll have a go at that." And so Superman went into this contest, and he came out 5 minutes later with the first prize, a lot of money as well. "Yay, I won," said Superman. And the third character, Pinocchio, he saw another contest, The Biggest Liar. So he went into that contest, and he came out 5 minutes later crying. He lost. And he was crying, "Who's this Donald Trump? Who's Donald Trump?" Okay, that's a good time. Please excuse me. That's a good time for a toilet break. So have a toilet break if you wish. Please try and come back in 10 minutes, and then we do the loving kindness meditation. Okay, sorry about that. I think I said that before, not a mile somewhere. Hello. Is this the formal letter of complaint? From your lawyers handing me to be sued?
Thank you. Can we please ask for forgiveness for any naughtiness?
No. I'm not going to forgive. Should I forgive them? You're already pre-forgiven. You're already pre-forgiven for the rest of your life. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I forgive you for anything you've done, body, speech, or mind, in the past, present, or future, for the rest of eternity, which doesn't exist anyway. But anyway, you're all pre-forgiven. You're allowed to make mistakes. And so please forgive me for any mistakes which I have made, which are quite a lot. But any sort of Dhamma which I've given can hopefully balance that. So may you all be happy and well. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We forgive you.
Sorry?
We forgive you.
Okay.
And thank you for your teaching.
Okay, it's good to have you here. And sorry for not explaining about that chant we do every morning and evening. The loving kindness chant.